Hello everyone, welcome to Road to Punchestown. Ruby Walsh and I are here at Nace and very much looking forward to previewing the 5 days at Punchestown. It should be absolutely top class action.
It looks to be. I mean, big fields tomorrow afternoon, some great races, and yeah, look, there's a drop of rain forecast. It's beautiful here this afternoon, but it's set fair, yeah.
Yeah, and the jockeys title is going to be decided over the 5 days. Obviously, we've already decided the titles in Britain. Let's just recap what happened. Of course, you'll all know by now that Willie Mullins did what had been not achieved for 70 years by managing to be an Irish-based trainer, winning the British Championship. The other winners, of course, Harry Cobden for the first time, top jockey owner JP McManus, the 8th successive time, the 16th time this century, and Patrick Wadge was the conditional jockey's champion. If we move on to Ireland, well, Willie Mullins pretty much has, well, he at least has one hand on the cup, if not almost two. He's poised to win it for a 17th time.
Yeah, 17th time. Look, he's gone to Punchestown a couple of times in the past, needing a good week to collect, but I'm sure while it's not quite mathematically done and dusted, I think it's fair to say it is.
Yeah, and owner-wise, JP McManus, he's got the double up too. Conditional rider, top rider will be Danny Gilligan, but it is all down between Jack Kennedy and Paul Townend over the course of the week, which we will come back to in a moment. But first we're going to pause on Willie Mullins and just talk about whether what kind of dominance we're expecting here, because he's been dominant all seasons on both sides of the Irish Sea. And there's been an interesting tweet from Matt Toombs, who you remember joined us for the handicapping episode of Road to Cheltenham, and he's put out this, that if you look at the last 10 Punchestown festivals, there are 120 Grade 1s. Willie Mullins has run 76 of them.
Yeah, it's incredible going. Look, he does target Punchestown. Even if you look at Punchestown stats, Lydia, throughout the season, it's where Willie is most dominant. He runs a lot of his best horses there, whereas Gordon's figures probably stack up more at Navan and Down Royal. It does seem to be Punchestown for Willie Mullins, and it's the end of the season, and he works back. I mean, he's the last of the big trainers to get going in the winter, and hence his horses last a little bit longer.
So is that habit, locality? Do we know what
habit? I'd say as much as locality. Locality definitely helps, but I would say habit. I mean, in Willie's mind, the season isn't over until the end of this week, and that's where he works back from. And even with a couple of horses, he'll have France into May in his mind for them as well. So, what have you got? 6 months in any horse? It's whatever 6 months you choose.
Okay, well, he's never had fewer than 5 winners during that time, and once he had 10. How strong can we expect Henry de Bromhead to be?
Very strong tomorrow. Slade Steele, Captain Guinness, Monty Star. Chance all three could start favourite in the 3 Grade 1s. Look, he will be strong, and Gordon is strong through the week as well. Like, I know Willie and Gordon both went to Aintree. Gordon probably bought a few more bigger guns than Willie did, but I still think Punchestown will be strong. Of
course, Jack Kennedy will be relying on Gordon Elliott to have a good week. He goes into Punchestown 7 winners ahead of Paul Townend. How do you see it? It's 1-2-2, plays 1-1-5.
On any normal week, 7 would be more than enough, but it's not a normal week. It is Punchestown. I suppose the way I'd be looking at it would have been how AP would have taught me to look at things, purely numerical, statistically. What way do you see it? What's the magic number? What's going to win? Probably 125, definitely 126. So Jack needs 4 to get to there. Paul needs 11. That's the way I'd be looking at it. And what's Jack got? He has good rides, better days ahead, stellar story. Not sure which one of those he's riding, but he has Chihupu. His chances tomorrow, he only has to get 3 will definitely get him a tie, 4 will get him over the line, whereas Paul has to find 10, maybe 11.
How many bankers do you think Paul has got?
I thought 4, maybe 5. When you look at it, obviously Stateman, Ballyburn, Lossiemouth, Gaelic Warrior, I think Galopin Des Champs, there's 5. And then you have the likes of a Mr. Giff and Another Way, Blizzard of Oz, different horses like that in conditions races with chances. But look, Blizzard of Oz has to beat Answer the Cave. That's not going to be easy. So it'll be competitive. Then you get into handicaps and anything can happen.
Well, it's going to be exciting. I should just mention Keith Donoghue, who sadly is going to miss all of Punchestown with a broken thumb. That means that 3rd place is possible for Patrick Mullins as well if he has a very good week.
Yeah, and there's a lot of bumpers in Punchestown. There's 2 amateur races most days, I think.
So those are our thoughts as we're poised on the eve of the Punchestown Festival. Let's move into day 1. So let's go straight into the KPMG Champion Novice Hurdle. And just a reminder, first of all, as we look at the betting for that, Ruby, the ground, it's good to yielding as we speak. And you've mentioned that there's a possibility of some rain.
Yeah, and depends which forecast you look at, and what way your mindset is. If you look for, like anyone, look for the forecast you want and you'll find it. But I think there's between 10 and 30 mils possible tonight and tomorrow at Punchestown. But look, it could easily blow through the valley and land in Naas, and not blow through the other valley and land in Punchestown.
OK, let's have a look at the Sky Bet Supreme Novices Hurdle, which is obviously the key form line here, with 5 horses potentially reopposing: Slade Steel, Mystical Power, Firefox, Asian Master and Tully Hill. How do you see it?
How do you see it? Look, you look back at the Supreme, and I suppose you're looking at a race, you're looking, why won't this form hold up? I don't really see why it won't. Tully Hill, I thought, got it really easy in front, but I never thought he looked comfortable. He went a good gallop down over the first. Slade Steel was a bit keen early. Asian Master was quite wide. Mystical Power, Firefox, they tucked in behind in a nice colour, with nice cover. But you know, even when they got away from the second hurdle down the back, but when they came down the hill to the second last, they'd gone steady here, because like everything had a chance heading to the second last. They're in a bunch. Tully Hill was the first one to kind of cry enough. Slade Steel went through to take his chance. Mystical Power switched out. Firefox got caught in a pocket with Mr. Gift pushed through, and Asian Master was the one widest of all staying on. But look, Mystical Power got a brilliant jump at the last. Slade Steel jammed on. You're thinking, wow, Mark's gotten to the front, he's going to go and win. And then Slade Steel just kicked into overdrive. And I loved the way he went to the line. He'd been really impressive at the Dublin Racing Festival. Even though he was beaten, he looked a really good horse, and he backed it up at Cheltenham. And I think with the rain forecast in particular, Lydia, I think he'll uphold that form. The second and third have gone to Aintree and had a right ding dong. Asian Master, yeah, maybe he could improve with a bit more racing, but possibly looks like a horse that wants a bit further in my mind. And then Tully Hill has to get over that run, which was so disappointing. And I was thinking maybe if the sun stayed shining and we didn't get any rain,
well,
but it'll have to.
I mean, that is the interesting point, I think, because although the form book will say soft about that Supreme Novices Hurdle, it was actually run on heavy ground. That's what the times say. And if you look at Slade Steel, he's only raced once on good to soft, and wasn't that when he was beaten in a bumper?
Yeah.
All of his form this season is on much deeper ground.
Much deeper ground, and I think that'll be key to him, and the forecast is given that. So, yeah, I think he will be very hard to beat. And look, again, it does. I know this is the night before, but it's the afternoon and we're recording. But I mean, it's hard to know what does happen tonight. Will be key to what you really fancy in this race tomorrow.
One other thing, he had just left, doesn't he? How bothered about that would you be? I mean, that was partly the awkwardness of the jump at the final hurdle, but he'd done it earlier in the Supreme Novices as well. He
had, but I hadn't noticed him doing it at Leopardstown or here. He did do it in the Supreme, but I can't see that being a massive issue. And even, especially Punchestown, you'll be out very wide tomorrow. Third last hurdle and second last are up the hill on the widest part of the track. Long way from the second last hurdle to the last. I think he'll be far enough in front, and he gets the last giveaway going left a bit.
We both, I think he's a very, very good horse. It was a quicker time, the Supreme, than the Champion Hurdle. That was more of a function of the way the latter race was run, which was quick, slow, quick in the end. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Just to sign off on the Supreme, Tully Hill, who again is a shorter price than some of the horses that finished in front of him in the Supreme. I thought he jumped really well, much better than he ever had done in the Supreme. I don't see why he turns this form around.
So did I. First hurdle, second hurdle, you're thinking happy days. But to be honest with you, I thought his goose was cooked to the third hurdle. They were going slow, yet he wasn't keen, he wasn't taking Paul Townend. I actually think he ran no race. He ran so bad.
Oh, well, that's an argument then for him to bounce back.
I think he can, but I do think that he wears a tongue tie. I do think he'll want the rain to stay away. And he was good at this meeting last year, but I just think that he doesn't want any rain.
OK, let's have a look at the Trusted Trader Top Novices Hurdle, and this saw the rematch between Mystical Power and Firefox, where the latter got closer but couldn't turn the Supreme form around.
Yeah, and I thought there was half a chance he could. I thought he got into enough of trouble in the Supreme Firefox. But look, it did get tactical, and when it went from the third last to the second last, look away, drifted out. Firefox came to challenge on his outside. Mark Walsh had to commit then to go through on his inside. Now, Mark was, I suppose, knocking himself, and he pulled up after saying he'd gone too soon. To me, he had to react to the situation in front of him, and he reacted to it and got it right. Got a really good jump at the last, and Mystical Power, to be fair to him, grounded out from there to the line, with Firefox challenging him all the way up. But I think Mystical Power will hold the form with Firefox. He's kept improving all year, Mystical Power, and yeah, I think I could see him holding that form. Whether either of them are good enough to get by Slade's deal is another question.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I think Firefox didn't get any luck in running in the closing stages of the Supreme, whereas I think he was flattered to get that close at Aintree because of the reasons you've just outlined.
Yeah, he could have been, but I still think, like, if you're watching it, I was just listening to Mark. I think if he doesn't take that gap, I'm not sure he gets back around and up to beat Firefox. So I think he did the right thing. It's just the way circumstances worked out.
Okay. Il Atlantique dropping in trip is an interesting one. Let's take a look at him. He's running against Firefox here in the Lawlers of Nace from earlier in the season.
Yeah, and look, Chapeau de Soy jumped out to make the run and made a couple of mistakes early, and that left Il Atlantique in front when he got to the third hurdle. Then he went a decent gallop, pinged the seventh hurdle. Firefox is just behind him. But when they got onto the home turn and off the bend heading to the second last, Il Atlantique does look the most likeliest winner. Jumps the second last well, and then reading Tommy wrong, switches out to come at him. Lecky Watson on the outside, and down to the last hurdle. Even when reading Tommy wrong is slow, Il Atlantique pings it, and you're thinking, you're still going to go and win, but he doesn't. And he disappointed a bit in the Ballymore, not the Ballymore, in the Baring Bingham, Gallagher, yeah. And he disappointed at Aintree. Maybe dropping back in trip will suit him. It's hard to know. He won a 2 mile maiden hurdle, but I would say on the whole, he's been a bit disappointing this year.
I agree with you. He didn't not stay when second in the Lawlers of Nace,
No,
did
he didn't. And dropping him in didn't work at Aintree or Cheltenham. Or Cheltenham even, he was too keen at Aintree. But I don't know. I just think he's flattering to deceive a little bit, and maybe a strong year run 2 mile will suit him, but it's the last roll of the dice, really, isn't it?
Yeah. If we have another look at the betting, perhaps, should just mention that the mare Fun wears a first-time hood. She drops back in trip. She shaped like a non-stayer last time.
Yeah, she was too keen at Fairyhouse over 2.5, and not surprised that she's... I think dropping back to 2 miles would do her, but not surprised they put something on her.
The one that I think that is possibly overpriced is King of Kingsfield. You have to throw out his county hurdle run, where the ground you would think would have been too heavy for him.
And I think the crawl at the county hurdle really didn't suit him. I think he's a horse that will be suited by a strong gallop and a more competitive race, which you would imagine a county hurdle would be, but this year it wasn't. It was one of the strongest finish and speed percentages of the week.
112.39 with the race likely figures. Yeah,
incredible. The speed, and that's why you look at Absurd, was the one who quickened up best. So yeah, I could excuse King of Kingsfield his run in the county, but I still think even on his novice form, he just has a little bit to find.
Agreed, yeah. But
I think Asian Master could be the one that's underrated.
Wide trip from the Supreme last time?
Yeah, a wide trip, and I just think another run under his belt, a bit more experience, I think would help Asian Master.
Okay. Let's move on, shall we, to the William Hill Champion Chase, and we can take a look at the betting for that, which has Dino Blue as favourite, but we're going to start by looking at the Beckway Queen Mother Champion Chase, which was won by Captain Guinness, beating Gentleman de Me in a race that rather fell apart beforehand with John Bond not running and during with El Fabiolo pulling up.
Yeah, it did. And look, this was one of the few races, Lydia, the only race at the festival where they finished at a speed of under 100%. But Edwardstone, the Elixir of the Nuts, jumped out to go a decent gallop. Captain Guinness on the inside. El Fabiolo, Gentleman de Me, was dropped in. But look, El Fabiolo's jumping wasn't great. It wasn't good at Sandown either. And he hit the fifth fence, and that was the end of his chance in the champion chase. But it was how easy then Captain Guinness started to go. By the time we got to the eighth fence, he was galloping over Edwardstone. And then you were looking behind him to see, well, is Gentleman de Me going to be the danger? Because from a long way out, you felt Captain Guinness and Edwardstone covered 4 out. There are 2 horses you want to be on are Captain Guinness and Gentleman de Me. They're only waiting to pick off Edwardstone. They did take it off and go to the second last when Edwardstone tipped up, and then Captain Guinness kept going best to beat Gentleman de Me. Now, it's interesting. If you reverse the places, do you reverse the result through the race? Rachel rode forward, Mark took his time. Looked like Mark was riding for place money and nearly got the whole lot. But you wonder if the reverse tactics would that reverse the positions. I don't know. And what difference will ground make? I think drier ground will be a huge plus to Gentleman de Me. Again, what's going to happen, we don't know. But I do think on dry ground, Gentleman de Me is a better horse.
Yeah, it is interesting that, isn't it? But I suppose the way in which they finished, if you had any question, it would have been over the final 2 fences with Captain Guinness, wouldn't it, in terms of his stamina? It
would have been. And, it's just... Look, they've played their cards with him, and if you're not in, you can't win. And he's a champion chase winner now, but you're just not jumping up and down and saying he's unbeatable.
He didn't have to improve, I think.
No.
I mean, and he beat a horse of a similar profile who have been they've taken their opportunities when handed to them, but are they fearsome 2-mile chasers? Neither of them are.
No, neither of them are. And it'll be interesting how this race is run as well. You have a few outsiders who are front runners, the likes of Saint Sam, Dysart Dynamo back again. This could be a really strongly run race. Who does that suit? Captain Guinness or Gentleman to Me? Probably suits both. It just depends on which one of them gets in the right position. I think there's not much between these horses.
Okay, and how about Dino Blue? Let's take a look at her performance at Cheltenham, shall we? And she finished second to her owner companion, Limerick Lace. What did you make of this?
She tucked in 3/4 the way down the inside. You would expect her to be the fastest horse in the race. I wasn't surprised with the way Mark rode her. I thought the only doubt was stamina. The 7 fence, she dropped back beside Allegory de Vassi. When they got to the 12 fence, then she's 5-6 lengths behind Limerick Lace as they start to climb the hill. But when they get to the business end of the race, down to the third last, to me, Dino Blue is close enough to Limerick Lace there to beat her. Mark follows her into the straight. Keith Donoghue and Limerick Lace to jump the second last, and Dino Blue starts to come. But she only kind of gets to Limerick Lace's tail and never really gets any closer. It was like Limerick Lace was almost waiting for her, and I don't know, she kept going all the way to the line, Dino Blue, but maybe back to 2 miles, ridden a bit more aggressively. I'm not so sure. I honestly did think at the third last, she's close enough to win if she's good enough. And ultimately she didn't.
It was just that jump at the second last when Limerick Lace said, I've got lots left,
Yeah.
how much have you got? And
Yeah.
I would do...
And you're coming.
Yeah,
I think she dared her.
And Dino Blue, I mean, I think she definitely stayed the trip, but
Yeah.
she might be better. She might be better faster and over shorter.
Maybe she would, but I definitely thought for America win over 2, she was close enough to beat a stayer, and ultimately she didn't. But yeah, it'll be a good contest. I think obviously with the race on Saturday, El Fabiolo and John Bond both went there with Edwardstone. I think that makes this really interesting. Like, I think this is wide open.
So, how about Banbridge? He'll be wearing first-time cheek pieces for this drop-in trip. We'll start by looking at him on song in the Silviniaco Conti, where he beat Pictori.
Yeah, he did, and you had to dig deep because, look, you got into a bit of a dash down over the last 3. Obviously, Edwardstone had pulled too hard, but the third last, Pictori out-jumped Banbridge, and they're hammering tongues to the second last again. Pictori out-jumps Banbridge, but the one that really counted was the last, and Banbridge out-jumped Pictori, and he wins going away. But the big question mark for him is the ground. I mean, both Joseph O'Brien, Ronnie Bartlett, they're always talking about Banbridge on the ground and how ineffective he is on slow ground. And if you watch him in the Ryanair, he made a mistake at the 4th last, but his goose was cooked really quick. Yeah. Like, for a horse you were expecting to be competitive on testing ground, he's not as competitive. So I'd imagine Ronnie Bartlett is hoping someone will put a cover on Punchestown because he doesn't want to get wet.
Yeah, he was never really going, was he, in the
No.
Ryanair? And those cheek pieces to help him have the speed as well for 2 miles, presumably.
Yeah, they will, and there is a bit of pace on here, and that you might think, well, if they go hard, it suits the stayer. It does once you keep the stayer within its comfort zone. But if JJ Slevin has to force Banbridge early to keep up or try and keep in contention, it's the easiest thing in the world to get a slow horse beaten by making it go on a fraction too fast.
Absolutely. We should just mention that Mascada's got a first-time tongue tie. She won the Grand Annual last season, but lost all chance with a mid-race blunder this time round. Any of the outsiders that you can see playing a part?
I think they could play parts in how the race will shape, but ultimately not in the finish. Saint Sam, Dysart Dynamo, I think they'll play a part in the race, but maybe not in the end of the race.
And the winner is?
I wish it was Tuesday afternoon and we knew what happened overnight. I think if it stays dry, Gentleman to Me, if you get a dig in it, I think Captain Guinness.
Okay. Let's move on to the Dooley Insurance Group Champion Novices Chase, shall we, over the 3-mile one. And we can start by taking a look at the betting there. You should note that 3-Card Bragg, whom we haven't seen since New Year's Eve when he was beaten 5.5 lengths by Monty Star, he's in first-time cheek pieces. And the first bit of evidence that we're going to look at is the National Hunt Chase, and this involves both Embassy Gardens, who finished second, and Salvador Ziggy, who pulled up. Yeah,
and that was the first run in a long time for Salvador Ziggy, but Embassy Gardens dropped in, and this race was run really, really slowly. They absolutely hacked at it, but Embassy Gardens never got jumping. Third fence, he made a mistake. Got around another circle to the 15th fence, made a mistake. He's trying to follow Corbett's Cross down to the third last to get in contention. He's not good at that either. And then at the second last, whatever chance he had is gone with a howler of a mistake. He never got into a rhythm, he never got jumping, and Corbett's Cross absolutely sprinted away from him. When he was ridden more aggressively over shorter trips, i.e. 3 miles and a little bit shorter, he definitely jumped better. He's won at Punchestown before, where he put in a really good ground of jumping, but he just jumped too badly at Cheltenham.
He did, and that was
Poorly,
odd. I mean, yeah, he wore a first-time hood. It's off here.
Yeah.
Was that because of the tactics that were planned for him?
I'd say Willie wanted to make sure he settled. He'd been too keen in the
Albert
Bartlett
Bartlett.
the year before when the occasion seemed to get to him. So I'd imagine he had a hood on to try and counteract that, but definitely didn't help his jumping.
How hearty do you think he is?
I'd say he's hearty enough. No, I wouldn't be too worried about that. I just wondered if travelling suit him. He's been to Cheltenham twice and run deplorable on both occasions.
Okay. And Salvador Ziggy obviously had a terrible time. He broke a blood vessel badly in America. He was never going there, but he would have hated heavy ground, wouldn't he?
He would have, yeah. Obviously, his Kerry National run is his best run, but he needs to bounce right back to that. And yeah, I'm not so sure about him. I thought there was more interesting ones outside of him myself.
Okay, let's move on to the brand advisory, shall we? Which is where many of the interesting ones might come from. Monty Starr, of course, chased home Factor File with Sandor Clegane in 4th and American Mike in 5th. Yeah,
and look, obviously Stay Away Faye jumped out to make it in the brown advisory, and he didn't go overly hard either, did he? Although he went a nice gallop, just fast as Harry Cobden would let him go. But Monty Starr landed in front at the 7th, and Rachel Blackmore took back behind Harry Cobden. By the time they got to come back down the hill, Sandor Clegane is arriving on the inside under Sean O'Keefe. Outside is Rachel Blackmore, still going well to the third last. Mark is following them on Factor File. Giovinco gets involved going to the second last when Sandor Clegane starts to fade. I loved how Monty Starr kept going. Thought he jumped really well. He just hadn't got the gears or the class of Factor File, but I don't think there's any shame in that. And he's kept going all the way to the line. I wonder, when you look back at it, I mean, it was a good finishing speed percentage. The gallop throughout was a fraction slow, maybe. You'd wonder would a stronger renewal have suited Monty Starr the way he stays. I'm not saying for 1 minute he would have beaten Factor File whatever way they did it, but I think he might have been a more impressive runner-up.
I like him. I think he's improved with every start, and I think he, in many ways, he and the horse we're going to move on to after this are the obvious ones in here.
They are, yeah.
He jumps really well, doesn't he?
And that was the thing about his win in Punchestown when he beat 3-Car Bragg. It was his jumping. He out-jumped 3-Car Bragg every step of the way. And I kind of thought maybe would 2.5 or 2.5 have suited him in Cheltenham and used that jumping, whereas at 3 miles you're always trying to hang on to it. Now there's no option in Punchestown. It's 2 miles or 3 miles. And you're never going to go 2 miles with him. But he just, he does jump really well, and you wonder will he make more use of his jumping.
And then there's Sandor Clegane. He jumped a little scruffily, but it was a career best at Cheltenham. Back to Punchestown?
He looked a decent novice hurdler last year, and you were kind of hoping he would move on to this. Punchestown, I just don't see how he turns with Monty Starr.
No, and he went left last time he was here quite a bit. And American Mike, who's got an OXO profile, hasn't he? And he lost all chance with 2 real howlers in the Brown Advisory.
He did 2 big mistakes in the Brown Advisory. And funny again, another one I thought watching him when he won the 10 up in Navan, I thought he wants to go 2.5, not up to 3.1. The way he jumped in the 10 up, he was attacking his fences, having a cut. Whereas at Cheltenham again, when they were going on heavy ground, just those couple of mile an hour slower, I don't think it suited him at all. And he's a bit in and out, but he's the only horse to beat in Factor File.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
Is that what you meant by OXO?
Kind of. Yeah, I suppose so. It was more that, he runs either well or badly, all the way through, Cross, 0, cross it, that kind of thing.
All right, no, I get it. I was figuring like OXO.
You got it now, right?
I got it, you haven't you? A bit slow today.
That's all right. So Spillane's Tower is the next one we're going to look at for the Willow Warm Gold Cup from Fairy House. Now, I'm really interested to know whether you think the step up in triple suit him, because I've got a strong view.
I think it could. I do. Different tactics with him. Blood Destiny dropped in at Fairy House, whereas Blood Destiny had been in front of Spillane's Tower on his previous 2 starts. He got a great run off the bend. Mark Walsh was watching Danny Mullins' tactical move was going left. Mark sits in the pocket waiting for it to the third last, jumps into it, and he's always in pole position then. Good jump at the second half. I think he backs off and pops the last. He was only doing enough in front, and he was always holding tactical move in Blood Destiny. He's a great way of racing. He's not keen. He races behind the bridle. He's an economical jumper. I'd have no issue with him getting 3 miles. You said you had a strong opinion, though. What do you think?
I do. I think the 3 mile is going to help his jumping. I think he was perfectly good, but there were a couple of times where I felt he was operating at the absolutely summative ability of his pace in that kind of company on certain occasions. I thought his occasional times his jumping suggested as though he will be much more comfortable going up to 3 miles, and I think he will stay at.
Yeah, and I just think, depending on what way Monty Starr is ridden here, I think the way he jumps in front, if he gets on the front, especially at Punchestown, on the second, when they get back to where they start, a 3-1 start, 3 fences down the back, 4 on the way home, if he starts attacking from there, they're going to have to jump behind him to get involved.
All of his chase form is on soft or heavy Spillane's Tower, but if you look back at some of his earlier form, I think it's going to be fine if they don't get the rain.
Yeah, but having said that, if they don't get the rain and it stays drying, I wonder would he even line up. A lot of his form is on testing ground, so I'd say they will be looking for the rain.
Oh, okay. If he does perform well here, I mean, what an embarrassment of riches JP McManus has in this division. I Am Maximus, Corbett's Cross, Factor File, I Know the Way You're Thinking, and Spillane's Tower. I mean, just wave the white flag next season.
Some bunch of horses to have, isn't it?
Yeah.
All in different yards?
Yes, they are. No, 2, Factor File and I Am Maximus.
Oh, sorry, two in
in the yard.
2 in Willie's.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Novices, sorry. 2, yeah. But, like, just, yeah, some fair play to him.
Yeah, some team. When I was talking to Frank Berry about that at Aintree, he said that JP says, time and events have a habit of sorting these things out.
Yeah, that's a man of experience talking.
It really is. It very much is. Okay, so that's day 1. Let's move on to day 2. The first race that we're going to look at on the second day, the Wednesday of the Punchestown Festival, is the Channel Real Estate Group Novice Hurdle. Let's take a look at the betting for that. And the race we're going to start with, we're going to go to Aintree first, I think, Ruby, and have a look at the Cavani Sartorial Menswear Sefton Dancing City winning here.
Yeah, and it was a good performance. The jukebox man tried to replicate what he did at Cheltenham. He jumped out. Kintara went with him. Dancing City was down the inside in the black cap. Shanna Bob in the Donnelly's first colours with the yellow cap. But they went a decent gallop here. By the time they got to the bottom of the back straight on the second circuit, away from the fourth last, Dancing City looked in a bit of trouble. Kintara was pushing the jukebox man, and they opened up and had Dancing City. They got Shanna Bob off it across to the third last hurdle, and Kintara was starting to fade, and the jukebox man was left in front. But you always got the feeling Paul Townend had slowly started to realise he was the one going best. He came to Keelan Woods going to the second last, landed beside him, got to the front going to the last, and he's one going away in what was a strongly run contest. Now, I suppose not only worry, you'd have to think about it. He's gone 2-6 at the Dublin Racing Festival. He ran in the Albert Bartlett, and he's been to Aintree. How many times can you go to the well? I don't know. I'd be concerned about that for Dancing City.
Yeah, and it's an unknowable, isn't it? Sixth
It is.
start of the season, and I hear what traders always say that until you actually go to a race, you don't actually know. You can't tell from home.
No, he looks a picture. Hasn't done a whole pile of work. I mean, what work would he need at this stage? But he looks really well. Dancing City. He's a very good horse, and it's an interesting one. We were only slagging about it the other morning on the gallop. So he had the champion bumper in Punchestown last year, and the winner's bumper on the Thursday, where Ballyburn beat Dancing City in Slade Steel.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
Go for a soft option, yeah.
Let's move on to the Albert Bartlett. This is where Dancing City was beaten into third. Stellar Story beat the Jukebox Man, the horse that chased home Dancing City at Aintree, and this was a crawl of a race. It also involved Lecky Watson and High Class Hero.
It did, but it paid to be on the front end. And look, losing rides never really get much credit, but I thought Keelan Woods was brilliant on the Jukebox Man in the Albert Bartlett. They went really slow, and he went along upsides in front. Stellar Story sat second, and Dancing City was the one leading the pack behind them. That's for the whole of the first circuit. When they go back to where they started, not much has changed in this race. And by the time you get down to the second last, it still looks the same format. It's the Jukebox Man from Stellar Story, and you have Dancing City behind him. Keelan Woods quickened up then, and I thought it post the lead going to the last hurdle. That was going to be insurmountable. He got a bit close. Stellar Story nearly nodded over, but he didn't. He stayed standing under Sam Ewing, and only in the last 50 yards has he run down the Jukebox Man. It was a really good performance from Stellar Story, but he'd been well beaten at the Dublin Racing Festival by Dancing City. He'd been second to Loch Lynn at Christmas. Third in that race was Answer the Cave. That was probably a strong race, although Loch Lynn did at the form down in Perth since. But I thought it was a good performance. I think the interesting thing though is that Jack has gone for Stellar Story over Better Days Ahead.
I would have thought that would have been a difficult call myself.
I would have thought the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on Stellar Story, definitely he's a stayer, isn't he?
Absolutely.
The step up to 3 miles would have suited him. He probably would have preferred although he's well positioned in the Albert Bartlett, he would probably have preferred a stronger run contest.
He was, but he was the only one close enough
Yes,
to get the jukebox.
absolutely. It was very, very, very well positioned. Any chances to Lecky Watson or High Class Hero?
Yeah, Lecky Watson definitely. He had a really good run here behind Reading Tommy Wrong and Eat Atlantique. Probably a little bit far back than at Cheltenham and kept going well, but I thought he looked particularly well this week, so he'll run his race.
The hood helped him to a point to settle, but he still doesn't completely drop it, does he?
No. Time, I'd say.
Right, okay.
He's a bit of a slow learner. And High Class Hero was really disappointing. You couldn't take his run on face value anyway. But I still think when you look at his form, he needs to improve a little bit on his form as well.
Yeah, he's got lots of ones, but it doesn't really stack up quality-wise, does it?
It's not high quality stuff.
Okay, so let's look at the horse that we thought it would have been difficult for Jack Kennedy to choose between this one and Sella Story. This is Better Days Ahead, who won the Martin Pipe at the Cheltenham Festival.
And by the time the Martin Pipe was run, it was quite hard to pick out horses, to tell you the truth. So when I get around to the fourth hurdle, it was the easiest place to see them. And Better Days Ahead is halfway towards the outside. Now, Answer the Cave, Key to Bourbon, Winter, Waterford Whispers are all either in front of him or around him, and they're the horses who come to the fore. When you get to the second last hurdle, Danny Gilligan, who had been on the outside early, has gone to the inside on Better Days Ahead. Key to Bourbon's in the middle of the track. Answer the Cave is coming on the outside, and Waterford Whispers, who've been keen, is still in front. When they get to the last, then Mikey O'Sullivan is drifting to the outside rail and Key to Bourbon. Danny Gilligan's over the far side. And I think this was a really good race. Answer the Cave runs on earlier on the card on Wednesday in the Red Mills race. He'd be really hard to beat in that. And I thought Better Days Ahead grounded out. And I think this is solid form. Key to Bourbon bolted in since. And we haven't seen Waterford Whispers. But I always think the Martin Pipe works out. And I think this renewal will work out as well.
I agree with that. I think the form is comparable to the Albert Bartlett form. I think it would have been very difficult. Do you think he'll stay? Obviously, he's stepping up to 3 miles.
I do. He was doing a half speed in Down Royal in his first start over 2.6. He then won over 2.7 at Fairyhouse, I think, shortly after that, within a fortnight, and on the inside track and testing ground. So I'd have no problem with him staying now.
Who do you think's going to win? I mean, it's a really interesting race.
I think it is. I just be slightly concerned that Dancing City is
over the top.
Danced every dance,
yeah.
And it's going to take fair going, and I have a sneaky suspicion that Better Days Ahead.
Okay.
You?
I can see it. Yeah, I mean, I think I would be decided by the prices, I think, and I'd probably back whichever of Gordon's is bigger, to be honest.
11-4, Stella Story, 6-1 where I'm looking here.
Yeah, right, okay. So, there we go.
Days Ahead.
Yeah, so I'm with you. Better Days Ahead.
Each runner, each way. Can we get no runner, no bet?
Hardly. I'm just going to go win only.
Win only. All in.
Yeah, all in. Right, let's move on to the Ladbrokes Punchestown Gold Cup. And first of all, the really sad news about the death of Shishkin, who's fractured a hind leg in his own box at home. There's a tweet here from Deborah Bradley, who I think expresses the loss of many racing fans feel about this characterful horse. She says it's so tragic that the brilliant Shishkin passed away. Thinking of everyone at Seven Barrows, especially my nephew Jaden Lee, who cared for him and loved him so much. That was the groom of Shishkin. It's a sickener, isn't it? Oh. But cast in your box. I mean, it can be either innocuous, can't it, or it can be as awful as this.
Of course it can, and it's, I don't know, it depends on how different horses, I suppose, how hard they try to get themselves out of the situation. Some will just get cast in lighter till somebody comes and rescues them, but obviously Shishkin didn't. And you look at the races he's running and the performances he's put up, like to happen in his stable. You think it'd be the safest place for him. It's just a pity. Accidents happen. Accidents will always happen, and yeah, it's a horrible one.
It really is. So I thought it's very much with Seven Barrows. Let's take a look at the betting for this race, and obviously we're looking forward to the rematch from last year between Galopin Des Champs and Fastorslow. They've had a few goes at each other this season. The latest edition was in the Boodles Cheltenham Gold Cup, where Galopin Des Champs, of course, won. Correct Lambler was third. Fastorslow and seated at the 16th, and Gentleman's Game pulled up.
Yeah, and look, it was change of tactics for Galopin Des Champs, I suppose, from his 2023 win. They jumped out, typical Gold Cup, big line of horses going to the first fence as everyone jockeyed for a position. But when the race had taken shape, by the time they got to the second ditch, you had the real whacker and Long Pressy on the front end, Galopin Des Champs, middle of the track, sitting in about third. Fastorslow was directly behind him. But it was well grouped, this Gold Cup. It was a consistent gallop, and they stayed in a bunch a lot of the way. 12 fenced all together, and then they got around to the 16th where Fastorslow just nods on landing, and JJ Slevin's body weight is forward, and once your torso's gone beyond your knees, you're off, and off he comes. It was unlucky for him. Now they got to the fourth last and they started it quick, and you can see how far back Corrick Rambler is. Now down to the third last, then it's messy with Fastorslow in front loose, and Jerry Coloma stuck in a pocket. Galopin Des Champs on the outside, Long Press still in front. Off the bend to the second last, and Paul starts to go, and Galopin Des Champs, your eye was drawn to Corrick Rambler. He seemed to be the one that was motoring, but when he got to the second last, that was about as close as Corrick Rambler got. And then Galopin absolutely flew the last and grounded out to the line. I thought Corrick Rambler actually faded in the last 100 yards in the Gold Cup, and I was wondering what mark that would have left on him going to Aintree, but it was still a good run. I still think it was a consistent race. It was, I think, very good horses. It had a finishing speed percentage of 103%. I think it was a really consistently run Gold Cup, and the quality horses came to the top, and the best horse came out on top.
I thought it was a really well, for the conditions, really well run Gold Cup. They really went relatively hard, I think, and just they slowed down for a little bit for a couple of fences at halfway. But other than that, this was a relentless performance. I mean, nonetheless, it was the slowest time since Desert Orchid in 1989, which is both a reflection of the conditions and also the fact that I think this was, as is the popular term this season, a grueler.
A grueler.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it to look at Galopin Des Champs. He's been in great form since he came home. Obviously, Jerry Colom went back to Aintree and won. So there's the first and second. And we could have judged it on Corrick Rambler if he hadn't galloped into the first and Aintree. But, it is, to look at Galopin Des Champs, he looks really, really well. Why did he not bounce out of last year's Gold Cup? Why did he not do it last year? I don't know, was he 6 rising 7 last year, 7 rising 8? Is he just that bit older, that bit harder? I think he probably is.
Okay, well, let's have a look at last year's Punchestown Gold Cup, which was, of course, won by Fastorslow, and it was a stellar field. Envoy Allen, Brave Man's Game was in there, along with Galopin Des Champs.
Yeah, and what was interesting was this was what I look for Fastorslow is compared to Galopin Des Champs. So Brave Man Game jumps out in front, Fastorslow sat second, and Galopin Des Champs was behind Fastorslow. And that was for the first 2 and a bit miles of the race. When they got back down to the fifth last, the big three kind of start taking each other on. Brave Man's Game, Envoy Allen, Galopin Des Champs up to the fourth last fence. They've left Fastorslow behind them, and they went at it a long way from home. Now Envoy Allen was the first to cry enough after they jumped the third last, and the three of them were in a line. But when they rounded off the bend to the second last, all of a sudden Galopin wasn't getting by Brave Man's Game, but your eye was drawn to the red cap, because from a horse that looked like he'd been out of the race, all of a sudden he was back in it, and he was the one powering home, pinged the last and went all the way to the line as Galopin Des Champs just out battled Brave Man's Game. There was nothing fluky about it. He showed us in the John Durkin that he's a high class horse, and it'll be interesting again on Wednesday. I think it'll be a cracking race, and I think Corrick Rambler adds to it. I think it's great that he's come too.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's anything fluky about Fastorslow, but I do think they did press on a bit too far out, and that did leave the 3 horses that had performed in Grade 1s at Cheltenham a bit vulnerable to a horse that stays strongly like Fastorslow.
Yeah, they did. They went at it, and JJ Slevin was confident enough to let them at it. It'll be harder for him too this year, riding the second favourite.
Yes.
Do you let the Gold Cup winner off? And you're riding the 10-to-1 shot, you can take chances.
Can we think about the scenario that the rain doesn't hit Punchestown? Because a theory that I've heard increasingly amongst participants, professionals of the sport, is that Galopin Des Champs is all dominant on testing ground and is vulnerable on good to soft. And now I think it's bunkum. What's your view?
I'm trying to remember here now, and I do have to look it up, but I was fairly sure he won a 3-mile novice hurdle in the sunshine at Punchestown. I could be wrong.
On times, it was good to soft in last year's Punchestown Gold Cup, good to soft in the Cheltenham Gold Cup, good to soft in the Irish Gold Cup of last season, and good to soft in the 2022 Turners, which obviously he should have won. Yeah,
he was going to bolt in, and then when he won at Punchestown, when he, after not falling, after winning, when he beat Gentleman's Game, that was yielding, which is good to soft as well. So yeah, he's loads of form on the yielding ground. There's loads of form on the yielding ground. I don't see the ground trying being a huge issue for him.
No way. I raise it because I keep hearing it being said. Right, let's have a look at what you think as we ask the roadies their thoughts about what might run here. Michael Hall says, Galopin Des Champs, he's the most consistent horse over the trip. May not be 100% because it's his 5th run. I think he's had a reasonable rest since the Gold Cup and has not run a hard race since Christmas. Oh, I can't agree with that bit, Michael. He will not be caught out this year because he is the better horse and will watch his opponents. Okay. So presumably not go on so far out is what he means there.
But I'd say I would expect Galopin Des Champs to be in front of Fastorslow all the way. I can't see Paul Townend dropping in.
Not when the horse is his jumping has come back on the last twice for those more positive
I think
tactics.
he's a year older too. He's a year harder. I'd say stamina has really become his forte.
Agreed. Phil Richards says, when a horse has had as many tough races as Galopin Des Champs has this season, you never know when they'll have enough for the year. Clearly he's the best horse, but at the prices I'll take a chance on the fresher Fastorslow, especially as he won it last year. Okay, Ruby, you've mentioned Korak Rambler a couple of times, and you did say in the Road to Aintree programme that you were worried about how he finished off the Gold Cup. I think he was jumping at his absolute maximum speed all the way through. He was just clinging on there at the back, and then came to try and get involved and couldn't. Do you think it left a mark on him for Aintree?
I don't know. You can't tell. He went to the first fence. Was one of the few. He won the horse that got a really good break. He bombed down to the first. He just didn't get high enough. Clipped the top, nodded out in his head, and got rid of Derek Fox. And then went to the second and completely forgot to take off.
I don't know what was going on there because he jumped so. He's such a clever jumper. That was the hallmark of his career. And the way he
probably didn't know what to do when he was loose.
Yeah. Do you like the way he stalked away?
But he stood up. He was always like thinking, like, what did I do that for?
I'm just like, sod this. Yeah. You know, I'm off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do we expect?
It's good to see him getting up and trotting off.
That's absolutely, 100%.
But what do I think? Look, he got up and trotted away, not a bother on him, and I'm sure Lucinda has schooled him since and wouldn't be bringing him here if she wasn't happy with him. But
he's had a relatively light season as well, of course.
He has, and he's a better horse in the springtime than he is in the autumn. He's a runner, and look, we saw last year when a couple went at each other that it suited for a closer. Is he the closer, not Fastorslow?
Yeah, could be, absolutely. One horse that I don't expect to be the closer is Conflated, but I do think he's overpriced for this. That was a screamer he ran in first-time cheek pieces at Aintree last time.
It was, jumped out and jumped like a buck, made the running in the Melling Chase. And he was able to keep quick horses at bay all the way. Got to the third last, Pick Dory was starting to fade, Protector that couldn't quite get out of the pocket, and down to the second last, Envoy Allen was gone, and it's John Bond that subsides him. And John Bond lands by him at the second last, and John Bond heads him going to the last, and always does enough from there on to beat him. But John Bond didn't half rank that form on Saturday.
Absolutely.
If anything, John Bond looked better last Saturday than he did at Aintree. But yeah, I think it was a really good performance from Conflated, but left-handed really suits him. I wonder, is he going to be as good going
That's
right-handed?
a good point, actually. I hadn't thought about that. You're right. He does go left, so that will detract. And presumably, do you think they'll be positive again with the cheek pieces retained?
I'd imagine they will, but you'd be just hoping that the lads have remembered down Royal and no one gets on his outside.
Yes, quite. I'd forgotten, so I'm glad you reminded me. Let's have a final look at the betting. Hewick, the King George winner with first-time blinkers, disappointing in the Liverpool hurdle.
He was disappointing in the Liverpool hurdle, and again, wouldn't want the rain to fall, but look, he's the King George winner, and it was a big payday for him and a huge day for him, but I just don't know, Lydia, if that form is maybe as strong as people thought.
Okay. That's it for the Wednesday. Let's move on. Okay, so we've lingered longer on days 1 and 2 of Punchestown because we've got the declarations, and we're going to be a bit quicker over the final 3 days, and because we're guessing to some degree what is going to turn up inevitably. So let's start by having a look at the Ladbrokes Champion Stayers Hurdle, shall we, with the betting there with Chihupu even money. Irish Point at this stage, at the time of recording, is still in this race. This race in many ways revolves entirely around Chihupu, who ended up winning a steadily run Stayers Hurdle at Cheltenham.
He does, but stamina's not an issue for him either, and I think he has the profile, the racing technique and everything that a champion staying hurdler should have. Look, they didn't go mad, Lydia. Noble Yates and Asterion for launch. You saw them upsides going to the first. You knew they weren't going too hard. Dasher, Flooring Porter. Chihupu was halfway wide. By the time they got to halfway, he's grand and relaxed. Buddy One was just inside him. Sire de Burley behind him at Home by the Lee. And when they get to the third last, they're in a bunch, really tightly bunched field. Down to the second last. And he's a bit clumsy at the second last, Chihupu. But when he gets off the bend, Jack rolls in, tightens up Noble Yates. There's a bit of a knock-on effect for that, but like, he quickened nicely, jumped the last really well, and he was always holding Flooring Porter Home by the Lee and Buddy One. Now Buddy One upheld that form at Aintree. Flooring Porter slightly disappointed. Home by the Lee is 2 ways of running, but I just think Chihupu ticks the right boxes to be winning this Stayers hurdle and this race for a couple of years. I think he's a lot of things on his side.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. But he one's been a bit of a revelation, really, hasn't he?
Huge revelation. Probably got involved plenty soon at Aintree, but he's taken his racing really well, Buddy won. And you know, if he turns up, he'll at least keep the hoop honest. But I just couldn't see him beating him.
And how about last season's preeminent staying hurdle side, Burley, who ran quite promisingly at Cheltenham, but was pulled out with a vet certificate lane at Liverpool?
He was, and he had come on for his run in Navan to Cheltenham, and he's always a horse that improved for runs. But look, I wrote him off last year when he's 11. He's now 12, but if he taught me anything, it's never to write him off.
And are you thinking mares like Tell Me Something Girl and Lantry Lady might go to the mares race rather than here?
Well, I think when you weigh it up, do you take on Lossiemouth or do you take on Chupu? I don't think there's an easy option there, and it's what the rest of the opposition are. I thought Tell Me Something Girl kept going really well at Cheltenham. I would probably fancy her more than Lantry Lady.
I'm the other way round.
Are you?
Yeah.
I thought Tell Me Something Girl kept going really well. Maybe one or the other, but I could probably see them both lining up on Saturday.
Okay. Let's move back in the card to the Barberstown Castle Novice Chase, shall we? Have a look at the betting for that. It's over 2 miles, and obviously the mighty Gaelic Warrior is the one that we'll be looking at. A huge performance when winning the Arkle with Ileti Tom, who went on to win at Aintree, behind him in third. Yeah,
and obviously Master Chewy and Matata and a few more that ran in that race. But look, they went a good gallop, and Matata helped them. She booked out in front, or he booked out in front. Matata, Gaelic Warrior was in the middle, found a 50 outside him. Ileti Tom settled back on the inside. Time he got to the fourth fence, he's in second, a little bit keen, but almost settled. But I do think the strong gallop suited him. Fourth last fence, he let Tomp made a mistake, which was the last ditch, found a 50, took on Matata down the hill to the third last, and Paul Townend was sat watching them, and I didn't know how he was going, honestly, watching him at the time, but as soon as he switched him out off the bend and moved on him, Gaelic Warrior just came alive. He was good at the second last, and Master Chewy fell behind him, and the last fence he absolutely pinged it and bolted in. He put a lot of question marks to bed, going left-handed, and I suppose if he doesn't get on his toes in Punchestown, you'd nearly be worried now compared to him getting on his toes. Now, I know you were in the ring in Cheltenham. You thought he was better than he was in Cheltenham.
In the ring, but I didn't see what happened after that. You told me about this.
I was watching him on the way at the start. I was obviously sitting in a truck watching God knows how many cameras, but I must say I was getting anxious for him, watching him coming out onto the track. And until he got galloping, once he got galloping, he was fine. But for the time Paul got on him, till he got down onto the track, he was really on edge. But once he got cantering to the start, he relaxed. Strong gallop suited him. Matata definitely helped him. I don't know what the strong gallop is to lead him in this race. He may well end up making the run himself.
He might have to.
There's a strong possibility he will. Blood Destiny obviously got beaten when he made the run in at Punchestown. That was over 2-3, but he still didn't make it in the flying bolt. He sat in at Navan, so I could think he probably will end up making a run.
And how about Ileti Tom? I mean, he made some mistakes, and that's 3 times now he hasn't run so well at Cheltenham. He's going up in trip, seemed to suit him at Aintree. His jumping still isn't 100% though, is it?
He has his own technique, hasn't he?
He does.
Genie's Destiny and Grey Dawning, it's still good form, but he most definitely has his own way of jumping, Ileti Tom. But look, whatever way you look at it, he's bagged 2 top-level novice chases this year, one at Leopardstown and one at Aintree.
Any chance to Hercule de Soy?
Hercule de Soy ran okay in the end at Aintree, got outpaced halfway down the back and then came home well. But, you know, Master Chewy had found a 50, was a career best from Master Chewy, but he may be living proof for it, but he'll have to have.
Okay. That's the third day.
He could be the pace angle, though.
He could be the what?
Pace angle.
The pace angle. Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
no,
true.
to say it. He could bowl along.
Yeah.
He is quite keen himself.
Yeah, okay. All right, interesting. Let's move on to day 4.
So lads, apparently I meant to be asking people at home to subscribe to the Paddy Power Racing YouTube channel.
I said Niall's a false start. Shut up, it's not a false start.
You've described this day as possibly your worst day ever.
Have you ever heard of Ruby Walsh?
Take some juice.
A John Wayne lookalike on him, more than likely at the same time.
Second horse isn't worth the mares.
This is expensive bars bar.
Yeah.
A fence at Cheltenham where you go like that.
That'd be an entry, yeah?
I cut your nuts off. What do you think had happened to you?
So now it's time for the Friday. Let's have a look at the Boodles Champion Hurdle, shall we? We can start by having a look at the betting. And clearly, the pivotal race is the Unibet Champion Hurdle, in which Stateman beat Irish Point with Colonel Mustard back in 5th in a crawl. For a champion hurdle, it was a crawl.
Yeah, for a champion hurdle. Look, the line of them across the track going to the first hurdle. Race took shape then when they got up to the second hurdle. Not so sleepy in the me and Lion. Stateman, Irish Point, Lucia in the second row, and third row was Zarek the Brave, Colonel Mustard and the Berrico Lord. But even, I know the ground was a good bit slower, but they were doing over 3 miles an hour slower at the third hurdle this year than they were the year before. They had a finishing speed percentage of 108%. They went really, really slowly. 5th hurdle, not much change. Third last in the champion hurdle, there's 8 runners and you can throw a blanket over them. And they get down to the second last, even though a Berrico Lord and the other Henderson horse are starting to drop out. Lucia. No, she came forward, but even Berrico Lord starting to drop out, you can still throw a blanket over them.
Yes.
There's nothing between them. And as they round off the bend, then Stateman comes to Irish Point in what ultimately became a dash. And all it proved in Cheltenham is that Stateman's a faster horse than Irish Point. So if you're going forward, what does Irish Point do to try and turn that form around at Punchestown? He basically can't let the race develop into a sprint because he's not the fastest horse. The fastest horse is definitely Stateman. Now, time may tell you that Stateman is going to outstay him, even if he goes quick. But with Bob Ollinger and Irish Point in there, they have to do something different if they're going to give Stateman a race.
So you think he'll go forward? And
somebody has to. And they're obviously both in the same colours, not the same stable. But if you did. Stateman wins a sprint, simple as that.
Yeah.
Definitely. He probably wins the race anyway.
Stateman wins, doesn't he?
Anyway,
I mean, he's a 9-time winning Grade 1 hurdler.
He just does it the same every day of the week.
Yeah.
You know, he's a solid jumper, he's a good traveller, and he's not flashy, but he just keeps winning, doesn't he? Bar once.
What do you make of the, I know this is Punchestown we're talking about, but what do you make of the he's not so good at Cheltenham theory?
Why not?
I mean, factually, he's a few pounds off his best compared to some other races, but that's the other theory that's going around about Stateman. I've heard it said many times.
I thought he was really impressive in a county hurdle. I thought he ran a blinder behind Constitution Hill. Paul doesn't think he ran his race, but sure, any horse can have one off day. And I thought he did what he had to do in a really tactical champion hurdle. I thought Paul had absolute faith. He was riding the fastest horse, and that's the way he rode him. So I find it hard to say that he doesn't perform at Cheltenham, myself anyway. Yeah,
so do I. Let's move on to the Aintree hurdle, shall we? At Aintree, obviously, with Empire et Pass beating Bob Ollinger in what was quite a controversial finish.
It most certainly was. And look, Empire et Pass dropped in. The two followed him, Langerdan and Bob Ollinger. Look, third last hurdle, Empire et Pass has started to go right. Bob Ollinger gets outside him. Second last, Empire et Pass jumps out and pushes Bob Ollinger out. Down to the last hurdle again, he comes across. This time he doesn't interfere with him because he's clear of him. And then Empire Pass drifts left, Langerdan drifts right, and Empire Pass just holds on with Bob Ollinger wearing him down. It was controversial, it is what it is. But I suppose if you go back to Leopardstown and you look at Bob Ollinger, he couldn't beat Stateman there. I don't see him beating him at Punchestown either.
Okay.
What do you think?
No, I don't either. Absolutely not. No. I think Stateman wins this every which way. I don't think there is a way for. Obviously, something can go wrong. It's a horse race, you know, I don't see the angle to beat him.
Neither do I.
Let's move on to the Ilana Holmes Champion Novice Hurdle, shall we? And take a look at the betting for that, in which Ballyburn, the Gallagher Novices Hurdle winner, is really, really short. Now, I'm going to enjoy talking about this race. He's so impressive. He's got Jimmy DeSoy back in second and Predator's Gold back in fifth.
Yeah, and it wasn't a very strongly run race either. They didn't go mad. Mercury jumped out in front, Ballyburn with his head out in front of him, low on the ground. But if you watch Paul's hands and feet, up over the first hurdle, his hands are on his withers and his feet are directly below him. Where he does get a bit keen is where he runs down to the fifth hurdle. You can see Paul's feet move forward and his hands come off his neck. That to me was the only point in the race where he was actually keen. Running with a low head carriage is just his style. But when he gets to the third last hurdle, he's doing an absolute half speed. He lands up sides at the back of the second last. He let Tomp and Jimmy DeSoy coming out of the pack to try and chase him, but other than bumping into each other off the bend, that's about as close as they get. And by the time they get to the last hurdle, Ballyburn is gone and away and home for all money. I thought he was really impressive, Lydia, and I think he's going to be harder to beat than Stateman.
So do I. I think he's incredibly impressive. I've just heard a theory whereby people say, well, Jimmy DeSoy was beaten in the Mersey, Il Atlantique was well beaten at Aintree. Is the form really any good? I mean, he's almost 40 lengths quicker than Langerdan. And he finishes off, having gone more quickly, he finishes off the race more quickly than Langadan. Langadan, a horse that's good enough to finish third in a Grade 1 and has since run well at Sandown again. He's even quicker than him, with Langadan having had the benefit of a steadier pace to come home on stronger. I mean...
You only have to go back to Leopardstown.
Go on,
there
describe.
He is, turning in. Slade Steele just behind him in the Dublin Racing Festival. This is back at 2 miles even, and Paul Townley starts to quicken up. By the time we get to the last hurdle where they're bypassing, watch the change of quick gears, how he lengthens by the last hurdle and scoots all the way to the line. I don't know about the form in Cheltenham, but I ain't knocking the horse.
Just ridiculous theories. Anyway, I think it's just clinging on to straws. Right, so let's have a look at the Turners Mersey Novice Hurdle, shall we, which was won by Brighter Days Ahead, with Staffordshire not in second, and Jimmy DeSoy, who as just mentioned, was fourth.
Yeah, and look, we've trotted out a few finishing speed percentages here from Cheltenham. The Mare's Novice Hurdle was the fastest at Cheltenham, 114%. That Mare's Hurdle was an absolute sprint, and it didn't suit Brighter Days Ahead. She sat in just behind the leaders here at Aintree. Staffordshire not was wide in the track. Jimmy DeSoy was held up. Bid Atlantique was a bit keen, but at the third last hurdle, she arrives doing an absolute half speed and joins Bugsy Seagull down to the second last. Jack opens her up, she pings it, away she goes, flies the last. And whatever it was thought I had in my head of maybe thinking Jade de Grugy would beat her, never again will I think Jade de Grugy would beat Brighter Days Ahead. I think she's the best novice mare in training, but I still don't think she'll beat Ballyburn.
No, it's a great clash though, isn't it? It wasn't the strongest run race either at Aintree that she won. Staffordshire not going to have to improve his jumping, isn't he?
He is, yeah, but look, it'll be a toss of a coin for Brighter Days Ahead. Do you take on Ballyburn, or do you wait till Saturday and take on Lossiemouth? Or do you go to the field and take on neither?
that could be option 3 potentially.
Option 3,
we will find out. I'm hoping it's option 1. Let's move on to Saturday. Right, so the last day is the Saturday, and the undoubted star of the day will be Lossiemouth in the Coolmore National Hunt Sires Bolshoi Ballet Irish EBF Mares Champion Hurdle. There is how it stands. Do you see any way of beating the Mares Hurdle winner from Cheltenham?
No, not with normal luck. I don't. I mean, I think we were talking early in the show about Paul Townend's bankers. They are loaded to the back end of the week, and he may well be still relying on Lossiemouth come Saturday. But look, she was brilliant at Cheltenham. Physically, I think she's actually still improving. I think she'll be a better mare again next year.
And how about Lucia if she runs?
I think a slow race might suit Lucia. I thought the slowly run Champion Hurdle really suited her. It wasn't such a slowly run race at Aintree, and she didn't quicken it off in the second last.
Surely, Ashford Diamond, do you think they'll put the hood on again? I mean, it was odd tactics, wasn't it, to try and make the running at Cheltenham?
Yeah, and she seemed to run away, didn't she? Away past the stands, got running down to the fourth hurdle, and then cut out. So, no, and I kind of wonder, is she really a 2-miler? It was 2 miles at Doncaster. Yeah. I know she won 2.5, but I thought Paul was really good on her at Ferryhouse last year.
And Galopin Des Champs was never at the races at Cheltenham, was she?
Hasn't been for a couple of runs now, has she?
No. Okay, so that's for Lossiemouth to win, we think. Let's move on to the Ballymore Champion 4-year-old hurdle, shall we? This is interesting. We're particularly interested in Bottler's Secret, who wore cheek pieces for the first time when winning at Ferryhouse at the start of April.
And we're guessing, but the betting suggests Sergino's not coming because he's not favourite. But look, Bottler's Secret, he was good at Nace here. He made the run in at Ferryhouse. We got to the third last, give me 5 of... I was going to say Dan Skelton's, Harry Durham's came and joined them. But Keith Donoghue just said sitting on Bottler's Secret. When he opened him up going to the second last, he got a bit high. I do think he needs to learn to hurdle a bit better, but he's a hell of a big engine. Absolutely flew the last, and with the penalty, he beat Carl de Tourlay and Miss Manzor with Gimme 5 back and forth. And that was carrying a penalty, which is not that easy to do. He was giving Miss Manzor £10, I think, and he beat her really impressively. Probably sets the standard. Cargeese maybe is thereabouts at being second at both Cheltenham and Liverpool, but she needs to settle a bit better. She was too free at Aintree to give herself any chance.
She's still not settling, is she?
No, she's not, no. If anything, she's getting freer.
Yeah, so that would be a concern. I agree with you about Bottler's Secret. Gavin Cromwell decided to skip Cheltenham because he wasn't sure about the jumping. I think it's going to start to pay off.
It's starting to go the right direction for him, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that is our whistle-stop tour of Punchestown this year. I hope that you're going to enjoy it. We've certainly enjoyed the series of Road to Cheltenham, Road to Aintree, and now Road to Punchestown. We're at the end, though, of it.
Run out of road.
We have, but we'll be back again, won't we, in mid-November with next season's Road to Cheltenham. Thank you very much for watching all season. We've really enjoyed your company. We'll see you in November.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.